I wanted to try with this work. I began this work. I made a little exhibition some months ago in Sion when I was hosted as a resident artist in Fermazil. This is a project called Standby, and it's a really slow photography process. I wanted, in fact, to consider landscape as an empty stage where everything could happen, and to accept the fact that I wouldn't have control of the image I would get. So I fixed some static frames with an Hasselblad or even a camera, a large camera. I fixed some frame and I'm waiting things to happen inside the frame I fixed. So this can be done everywhere. So it's quite practical because it's a long-term, it's a never-ending project. I keep on doing it regularly, but it's a cross. So this was made in China, and I've chosen to use the same format as the cinema, also to have a narrative way of regarding the landscape. So I show you some example. This was pretty close. This was in Monte, about 40 kilometers from here. So when I arrived, the stage is empty and things are happening. Sometimes I'm waiting for 4 or 5 hours, and I just made one click. So I accept the fact that the landscape is, for me, everything I can see outside. Once it's seen, it becomes landscape, in fact. You need the viewer to make a landscape. So this is an example of the time I just waited for the scene to happen. It's near a school, and the mother was waiting for something with her child, and suddenly it started to rain. The stage was really empty, and then they just arrived there because this part stayed dry. But it's a pure miracle because I couldn't expect this to happen. Show you other examples. So that's in Xi'an in China. Yeah, on screen it's not perfect, but that's in France, in Vercors. But what I like it's not being too much involved. I'm looking at the landscape, but I'm not projecting my own intentions into the landscapes. Of course, I decide when to take the picture, but I'm not seeking for things to happen. I'm not following people or so. And landscape here is a pure stage where things can happen. The consideration that landscape should be something empty is not necessary for me. Even if I try to show you the work I made just after this in Belgium. So I don't know where it is. Yeah, here it is. Sorry for my English. I can do it again in French after a few. Like this. So this was a work I initiated in Belgium in 2003. It took 5 years. My idea was to observe a whole territory, and how to observe a territory in its all complexity. So that was a good answer of the question of sublime you described. I will also consider sublime more in the Swiss work I'm doing at the moment. There was another sentence which was quite interesting. in landscape, of course, you have the landscape, I mean the natural things happening by themselves, but you also have little, of course, the buildings and all the things that are purely human and observable, but all the remains that give some informations about the people living there. And so this is, I don't know if I will read it because it's written in English, and if I read it, you won't understand it. If you read it, you have chance to. So it's a quote from Daniel Diefenbacher, who was active in Walker Art Center in Minneapolis, and this quote was used in Olivier Lugon essay for a lecture of documentaire style in photography. I don't know if you're ready with this, but it says that every little details give really informations about all the people living there. So this is Belgium. It's not Switzerland. Sorry. So I wanted to cross Belgium and to show how it was. So I've chosen. In fact, in my projects, I'm quite conceptual, and I like to have some basic rules I will respect for a long period. So I try to cross Belgium by walking, and I've chosen the frontier, the linguistic boundary, because this is not geographic at all. It's purely political. So this is not observable in landscape, and it divides the whole country. So I found quite interesting to describe the country by his separation without talking about this separation. It's only a way I kept on following. So it also gave me the opportunity to have great variations also of landscapes, because this is Brussels surrounded by a frontier because it's in Flanders. So this gave me the opportunity to walk just next to something really dense, and then to cross the whole country. So it was a photographic project, so that's the detail of the border. In fact, in my work it's only presented like this, so people don't know it's the frontier. They only see the line, because if you are in Belgium, you know the form of the country, and if you identify it, you immediately say that's the border. So like this, it's more like an abstraction. So this is how it looks like. It took many years, because we talked about Bernd and Hilaire Becher before, and I wanted to make this photograph in a way like it was done in documentary as they done it before. So it's only gray scales, gray skies without any apparent clouds, and it's quite a difficult sky to find. It's 10-15 days in a year to have this, even if Belgium is quite a rainy country, but but normally you see the clouds, so it's quite impossible to have this situation. But it's good in a documentary way, so you don't have any disturbing shadows. You can have a really lecture of any details. So this is randomly presented. So there's no way to see, this is, I know this place, it's situated there. Everything can be everywhere in Belgium, and I don't give the information. Of course I know it, but I'm not saying it into the work. So it's about a bit less than 500 pictures. It's presented like this. So maybe some, you know, probably Lewis Boltz, the American photographer, also in the new topographs. He presented also his works like this in a huge collection of pictures. And this gives me, this is a quite confronting experience for the viewer to see. It's possible to see any details in every picture, but at the same time you're lost in a impossible thing to watch. So that's another view of. And the pictures you've seen before are taken from the book. For the book, in fact, you need to sell the book, so it's better to also have bigger image. So I made the compromise, and on some pages I had some. So and now I'm starting. I started a similar project in Switzerland 2 years ago, because Switzerland is my second country, because I have Swiss origins, and it's good to compare Belgium and Switzerland because it's the same, not the same geographic aspect, but the same size and the same density. No, the density is quite different, but the size is. It's possible to cross Switzerland by foot, so why not to do it? But it was still too easy, so I decided not to make picture because this is really too fast. So I decided to make video. So this is Switzerland. You know it, I think. How to go inside the country. So I decided a way. I could not make the Röstigraben here because it's not the same reality, same political. So I decided to walk. So I just see how much there were ways to follow, just to follow, and these are all the ways. Yellow one are the easy one, and the red one are the alpine ways. So this was okay because there are ways everywhere. The country is really difficult, but ways are everywhere in Switzerland. So if there are some parts you cannot see ways, it's because it's a lake. And yeah, so I decided to cross Switzerland and go each time to the center of it. It's called Elgialp near Giswil in Canton Obwald. And I've chosen some external. I didn't want to find my origins point in Switzerland. I wanted to come from outside. So I didn't use the latitude and longitudes that are used in Switzerland because you have the most fabulous way of making maps here. There is a starting point in Geneva, that's kilometer 0, and then you count any kilometers, meters square, and that's the way Swiss people are just managing the maps here. But in all the other countries on Earth, we have a complicated system with degrees, with seconds, and it's really impossible to calculate. Here, you open a map, you just count the squares, and you know how many kilometers that makes. With the other system, you have to have a computer, or it's impossible. So so I've chosen all the where latitudes and longitudes crosses. I just put a point, and this was the starting point of my ways, which gives these ways. So it's fun because Mainfeld is actually the town of Heidi you mentioned before. So these are the ways that are ready at the moment. So this is a lake again, and I need to make this little part. This will be done Saturday, and then next summer I will cross the glacier here, and I just observed that something is missing there. So I might come again to make a 10th line because I don't think it's enough. So during all my ways, I'm actually stopping at several moments when I find something interesting to make some video, 1 minute videos on a tripod each time, and I like to collect all the diversity of the country, and also I like to include the weather, because the weather in Switzerland is something really special, more special than anywhere else. So I walked all season long, and I present at the same time all uses of the landscape. I mean, panoramic views, a parking place, a railway, could be a particular house or individual house, anything. And I like the variety of the altitude and the season. So I've all the things being presented together on 45 screens. This is not ready yet because I've made all the films. It's about 2,000 films at the moment, and I have to spend about 6 to 8 months to make a database of each, to see this is more like nature, this is this altitude, it was taken in this village in this season, the sound is okay, can be used or not. So it's a whole database for each video I will make. So just to watch all the videos, it will take 2 months, I think. It's more than 2,000 minutes. So that's the way it will be presented. Now I will show you in the chateau some extracts on these videos. They were presented like this in a transitional exhibition I made in Pasqua last year. It's about 5 ways I followed, but they are presented in the wrong way. It was purely transitional, so it's chronology. It's the chronology. It's the map is over, but it's chronologiquement. So, but I just follow the way and put all the images to rebuild the ways I followed, which is not the random thing I will make at the end. So I think some things are missing, but the quote about sublime from Kant, but there was things said about this, and I had some other artists working in the. These are 4 views I've taken, but 4 from 2000. It doesn't signify anything, but it's my way of looking at things is quite close to new topographics. It's quite a critical view on landscapes, but I'm not able as an artist to write this critic. So my work is more a starting point, a kind of sponge for a critical or somebody who want to write a theoretical essay on the work. It's really a starting point. That's also why I'm not too much inside my work. You don't see my. It's more mimesis than poiesis. I keep always a distance with the way I'm framing things. So these are some other images, and of course it was I didn't present it like this, so it's more big. People are there in Belgium. People are just not are absent, but here action is quite important in the work too. Because it's quite typical in Switzerland. You could go anywhere, you always see people at 3,000 meters. It's rainy and you see people. So it's so this was a big influence for me, because they work in a series, and series since the year 60 is something really important because it's really gives a distance to the things you're watching it. You only see a collection and not the single image. Of course, you can always focus on details, but you are in a collection. And there is some radicality also. There is no perspective in the way they are framing things. That's also the way I do. This is I don't know the name of the piece, but it's Ed Ruscha that describes a whole territory by just making pictures all around a boulevard from. And it's
every building on Wilshire Boulevard.
Yeah, and this is quite interesting because it's also the idea of showing a whole thing between the macro vision and the micro vision. It's so another example, but in a totally different context. It's Gormley thing. Imagine one sculpture on its own. It's nothing interesting, but thousands of it. But it's purely a naive way to. This is more interesting. It's Paris Montparnasse by Andreas Gursky. One for some months it was the most expensive picture in the history of art. But there's also this micro and micro vision. So you see the impressive building, but it's also possible to get, because the image is quite long. It's I guess 4 meters long. It's also possible to really grab into the image and see any details, people smoking a cigarette on the terrace, or it's possible to go really inside the image, and so make connections. And I link this to this is Georges Perec. He made a book, maybe for English speakers they probably don't know this book. It's a totally mad book. It's called La vie mode d'emploi, which is quite a project, ambitious. And he describes a whole building in Paris with 20 different apartments, and he describes any details in every apartment, and it gives informations about the relations between the whole apartments. It gives informations about social context, about the link between people, organization, history of art. It's something really impressive. It's and for me that's a reference. I'm not pretending I will be as interesting as him, but the way he's making things is like a puzzle. That's why I've chosen this puzzle, and he's always in the introduction of this book is also speaks about the puzzle and their interest of it, because you know everything goes together, but it's interesting to make puzzle because you find similarities in something that aren't similar. So the way of making puzzle is a bit like the way you have the impressions of a whole country in landscape. He also describes the whole world, I think, by starting of his room and his table. He's describing the way he puts papers and his tools around him, his cigarettes and ashtray, and then he describes his room, his apartment, the whole city, the district, and maybe you know there's a short movie by Charles Ray Eames also of people sitting in a garden, and the camera zoom out, and at the end
scales of 10.
Yeah, and this is also that's Lewis Bolt's example, but these are just examples I give. I'm not able to speak about their work as a critic would do, but it's really inspiring me. But for him it was more easy maybe to have a critic view on the context, because it was such a transformation, something really violent. That's Jean-Marc Bustamante. That's also quite interesting in France, because he often photographs transformations in the landscape, but he called it, all these pictures are really made with in a slow process with a large camera. The negative size is like this, so it's just a contact print of the negative, so it's possible to see any details. And he called it tableau, which refers to painting, and it's quite boring place he liked to photograph. So it's a terrible gap between the style he uses and the subject he photographs. That's Bernard Voita. I like also the fact that these are only boxes he put in an atelier, and it's out of focus photographs, and it suddenly gives the impression of a city, of a dense urbanism. And I like the way of having this quick global view on things. This is also an extract of Amish Fulton, because it's also for me an experience of the landscape. Of course, I cross it. It's not present in my work. I don't show me walking, or I don't put quotes about my experience. But of course, this is a quite romantic behavior to cross the landscape and to feel how big it is. I remember the photographic experience of I think it was Duncan in Egypt, who at the beginning of 19th century, and he makes photograph, and there was always somebody in front of a pyramid to give the dimension of the pyramid. And my experience is like this: I physically understand how big is a country. So that's a bit everything I wanted. Do I still have time or not?
Yeah, but you can have, we can have like 10 minutes, but to me what was really interesting, like knowing that you did this work in Switzerland, and it is also related to the conversations that we had when I invite you to come. It is like it's the reading of the landscapes that you gave me when based on your experience.
Yeah.
I think that would be very interesting to share to the people.
And I'm ready to talk about this, but it wasn't the direction I just heard in other intervention. But that's quite interesting, in fact, to see the specificities of Switzerland compared to other countries, and in fact Belgium. I spoke to this with somebody at the table at dinner time as well, but it's quite I don't know who you said that this morning, the strong link between the people and the landscape here. I think it's not
ideological link.
Yeah. In identifying themselves to the landscape, and that's really observable everywhere in Switzerland. For example, I mentioned this example earlier, but in private conversation. But a big difference is the way landscape is considered as a kind of collective treasure here. So everybody should keep that treasure as clean, as beautiful as it needed to be. And for example, there's no fences between gardens. Maybe in this part of Switzerland there are, but if you go to Swiss-German part, of it, fences between gardens almost never exist, because they just consider their garden belonging to a larger landscape. That's the way I project myself into the things I've seen, but it's I take the other example of France, where the fences are 2 meter high, so that people are not connected to the landscape, and they like to feel at home in their garden, in the microcosmic world. And so that's quite typical in Switzerland. I also observed the fact that there was no abandonné the
wasteland.
Yeah, it doesn't exist here. In other country, you can find in the middle of a city some places where a building just disappeared or is not yet built or is belonging to someone, but these people don't know what to do with this part, and it stayed like this. So the vegetation is coming, some trees, and it's something really typical in other cities, and it's really impossible to find this kind of situation in Switzerland. If there's an empty place, it's always kept by someone else who will put some grass or come or and this is quite a strange phenomena. There is also this density of the railway here. You know that, but in Belgium, for example, we had in one century, some decades ago, the most dense network in the world. All use of the network at the same time. So we had gas, electricity, water, railway everywhere. And if you compare to other countries, we were really far further than the other countries, even for the highway, and then we just weren't able to renew things, to entretenir, to maintain it, and so we closed little railway stations. We only keep stations in cities, and here you have the opposite. The country is impossible for a railway. It's pure. It's a kind of miracle to think about putting a railway in such a difficult country, and there is a station everywhere functioning, and that's quite a challenge in Switzerland. That's quite interesting. Also, the perception of the coming from the train is really something that doesn't exist at this point in other countries. Tu as peut-être d'autres questions?
No, I think the best would be just to see the work and to have this idea to get an idea, like just seeing the work itself. Yeah. Great. So thank you.
Okay,
We are
thank you.
quite on
Okay.
time.
Bye.
Thank you.